Hi everybody, this is Keith. Welcome to VTS34. 3434. That's right. Welcome to VTS34. December 2007, on the cusp, the very cusp, you know, a cusp, right on the edge of 2008. You know, when I was a young boy, I never thought I would see 2008. It seemed like we would have flying cars and be living on the moon by now. We're not even close. We're not even close. Anyways, good to have you guys. I'm your host, Keith. And I'm here to say welcome. Yes, indeed, this is the video tutorial service, in case you didn't know. If you thought you were supposed to be getting something else, sorry about that. This is the flight to VTS land. If you wanted to go, I don't know, to learn about pottery, or say basket weaving, or perhaps how to balance your checkbook, I can't help you, especially the balance the checkbook part. Anyways, good to have everybody. It's good to be here again. I am, for those keeping track of my many travels, I am back in Brazil for a while, and then I will be traveling some more for some other things. But it's all good because that's just the way it is. It's all good. Anyways, this month we're going to kind of take a detour. We just got done with facial animation ideas. We didn't really get too deep into it, but we got, I thought, deep enough. I think sometimes we get a little caught up in facial animation and we kind of miss the basics, the broad strokes. What we want to do now is I want to spend a little time talking, going a little bit deeper into acting again. About 2 years ago, that sounds weird to say. About 2 years ago in the VTS, I covered acting in, I can't remember, 3 or 4 parts. And I thought, we covered some pretty good ground there, but there's some other things that I felt like, gosh, I wish I would have talked about that, or I wish I would have talked about this. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to fill out my wish list, do the things that I wish we would have talked about, okay? So, without any more muttering or rambling from me, let's get into acting stuff. Okay, acting. It's for those of us who aspire to do film animation or any kind of animation that tells a story about characters. We should know what we want to do as far as acting. There's a lot of books written to actors. There's a lot of information to actors about acting. And there's a few things where some folks have tried to bring that information into the world of the animator, and with varying degrees of success. Some folks are more successful than others at it. But what I wanted to do is take this time this month. This is going to be all lecture pretty much, with a few slides to kind of point things out. But really what I want to try to do is kind of illustrate how we as animators can kind of reverse engineer the acting performance of the voice actor. Because animation is very odd. It's a shared acting experience. Okay, we have the voice actor, somebody who's in a booth recording their voice and saying the lines and performing to, if we're lucky, they're performing to another actor, so that there can be some warmth and responding to that. But most often you just have one guy in a booth by himself with a script and a guy in a headphone saying, okay, yeah, could you read line 46 for me? And the guy has to look at it, kind of get himself in the thing, and then he reads line 46. And the guy in his earphone says, yeah, that was pretty good. Let's try it again, a little more life this time. Trust me, having directed voice work, being the guy in the headphones and being the guy in the booth with the headphones on with the script, I've done both. It's not a particularly natural way to do acting. It's actually very disjointed, and I find it amazing that we get anything decent out of it at all, to be perfectly honest with you, because it's really a messed up process. You take an actor and you put him in a cube, and you microphone, script and stuff, and then people talking in his ear, and he tries to imagine where things are at. And the better ones are good at it, but it's difficult. It's very difficult to get a lot of life out of it. Now, this isn't a treatise on the problems with voice acting, but I want to address this because it has a lot to do with what we have to live with as animators. Because animators, we are given the result of this kind of broken process. The best voice recordings I've ever seen are what we would call table reads, or group ensemble recordings. Okay, a lot of times directors don't like it because they lose control. They don't have the finite control over every specific word, or they can't ask for 47 takes of the same line. And I think what we trade for control, we lose for in spontaneity and warmth. An ensemble recording is when you get all the people in the particular scene in the booth together. You need a bigger booth. That's more expensive. A lot of times people don't like to rent for the bigger booths, and you need more technician help. And they're a little bit more unwieldy, but they yield such fun because what's happening is the actors are allowed to use their training. Okay, an actor's training says listen and respond to what's around you, especially stage actors. They're great at it. Okay. Because what they're doing is they hear what the other person is saying, and they're allowing themselves to respond naturally to that. It's much different than imagining somebody else saying something and then saying what I think is going to be a proper response. But ensemble recordings are fairly rare in the business. I'll have to be honest with you. Even in film, they're very rare. Most of the time, it's just one guy or one girl in a booth by themselves trying to cook up something, and a director asking for 45 different versions of, could you say, I want cheese with a little more life? That's very frustrating, and it's, I mean, having been there, it's annoying. But as animators, we have to deal with the broken pieces that are kind of cut together in editing, and a lot of times the breathing space is off, and the conversational flow is broken up in editing because, you know, like, cut 2 frames off of there, or that scene's feeling, you know, that sequence is feeling a little sluggish, you know, tighten it up. And so the editor gets in there and tightens things up, and next thing you know, it's just, it can be pretty ugly. So we're kind of stuck at the end of the rope here. You know, the animator is given this audio mishmash, and we're kind of given the responsibility of bringing it to life visually. And that's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. It's hard enough to do when you are culturally immersed in the source culture. I say that because there's a lot of folks who are VTS subscribers who are working in India, Korea, Singapore, and, you know, Eastern studios or European studios. And as a result, you're getting a lot of outsource work from the States. A lot of the humor, a lot of the performance, a lot of the voice inflection is very culturally sensitive, which means it would be hard for me to animate an Indian character in a way that is culturally specific and culturally sensitive to what an Indian viewer would expect, because I don't understand Indian culture. I've never been to India. I don't know too many Indians. I know enough to say, yeah, I have friends who are Indians, I have students who are Indians, and I feel like I can communicate with them, but there's always that disconnect. We're not on the same wavelength. So it's really, really hard. That's another part that's broken about this whole acting process. So what do we do about it? Well, to a certain point, anything that happens before us, we have no control over. None at all. We can complain, we can say, this is horrible, I hate it. But unless you want to work for free, which means, i.e., don't work at a studio, because if you complain too much, they'll say, get out of here. That's the way we do it. So there's nothing we can do about what happens before. There's no use complaining about it. There's no use saying, oh gosh, if only they would do their part right, my job would be easier. Well, guess what? They don't do their part right, your job isn't any easier. Welcome to planet Earth, okay? So what do we do? Well, I want to give us a framework for reverse engineering the actor's process that helps us choose visual expression of what we hear, so that we're able to really better capture the intent of the moment. So let's take a look at what this framework is. Okay, what do I mean by framework? Well, framework means just a workbench, or a way of looking at things, a way of understanding how things arrive to us as animators. Okay, and I'm not talking about the technical side of things. I'm talking about what an actor does to prepare himself, and while he is performing, to give you the lines that are recorded. Okay, the lines as they're recorded exist. How do they get there? I'm not talking technically. We're not talking like, well, you know, wavelengths recorded. No, I'm talking like in the actor's heart and mind. What is he doing, or what is she doing to arrive at that performance? Well, there's any performance in an actor's tool set is made up of 3 basic structures. There's the text, the context, and the subtext. Okay? 3. Text, context, subtext. So what are they? Well, the text is literally the words written on the page. Okay? They just exist. Okay? Somebody somewhere thought of it and wrote them down. For instance, what are you doing? I am eating. Why? Isn't that obvious? Okay, those are some pretty basic words. What are you doing? I'm eating. Why? Isn't that obvious? 2 characters, 4 lines. Real simple. Text. You can see it right there on the screen, right? What are you doing? I am eating. Why? Isn't that obvious? Completely out of the blue, right? They're just words. They mean something in the context of the story. Context. Okay. So text is really just the words. We could, literally, if we wanted to, we could just take the text and have the computer read it with a voice to, text to voice. What are you doing? Like those old Macintoshes. I think maybe they still do it. I don't know. Back when I had a Macintosh, I used to type up stuff and listen to my computer say funny things. I don't know. I thought it was amusing. I guess I'm easily entertained. But the words on the page have no expression. There's no emotion to them. There's no inflection to them. There's no pace. There's nothing. They're just text. Okay? But what gives those texts life is some other things. The context. Okay, what is the context? The context is the setting in which those words are read. Okay? So the context is what's happening. And you can take the same text and have it in different contexts, and then immediately those words take on a different flavor. They take on a different meaning. Okay? So the actor, of course, memorizes the text, and they also understand the context. A stage actor has the stage lights and the costumes and the other actors around them to help fill in the context. Okay? That's why table reads or ensemble reads in a voice recording are so much better. Because you're taking things and you're allowing the actor to not only just work off of text on a page, and instead of having to imagine a context, because quite literally they're not dressed in costumes, there is no sound, there's just a microphone, a music stand, maybe some foam on the walls, maybe a nice little bottle of water and a stool, and their headphones, and that's about it. There's nothing there. So the context has to be completely created in the actor's mind. But in ensembles, these things are still all the same, but at least there's other human beings for them to interact with, okay? And that allows them to kind of dive deeper into a context that's more tangible. And so they're able to get more out of it, okay? But a stage actor has costumes and settings and all kinds of things around them to give them more context. And it helps inform their performance. And so that's what an actor's looking at. They're looking at, I want to know what the context is for this scene. Where are we at? We're at a funeral. Take those lines I just read and say, okay, we're at a funeral. All right? Everybody's gathered around the gravesite. Widow's crying. Children are all wearing black. The family's around all somber. The preacher's there reading a word from Psalm 23. And some dude's in the back chowing on a hot dog. Okay? Some dude's in the back just chowing on a hot dog, smacking his lips real loud, and his buddy's next to him like, dude, what are you doing? I'm eating. Why? Isn't that obvious? Okay? Context all of a sudden lends a whole world of possibility to that text. The text by itself is sterile. It's just words. The context brings a lot of life to it. Now, the cool thing about us as animators, context is important to us too. Because when we understand the context, and this is usually done in storyboard, but when we understand the context of what's happening and how the words are being said, we can then start building visual performances with the body and the face and the gestures that are appropriate to that context. Okay? So the dude eating the hot dog, he's a callous fool. He doesn't understand well, if he does understand, he doesn't care what he's doing. People around him are grieving, and he's just like chomping down on a hot dog. All right? The buddy next to him is just like mortified. He's like, this is terrible. Dude, what are you doing? So he's not going to try and call attention to himself because he's already feeling bad about the situation where the big fat slob is just chewing on a hot dog. The guy eating a hot dog is not going to be doing it delicately. Or maybe he is. Depends on what kind of character he is. All right? That's all part of the context too. Part of the context is understanding who the guy is or who the person is doing that particular action at that moment. Okay? So let's say the person eating a hot dog is a rather callous and careless sort of guy. He just doesn't think of other people. He does what he wants to do. And the whole world revolves around him, and whatever suits him at that moment is fine. Okay? So he's eating a hot dog. He's not going to be eating it in a way that's dainty or considerate of others. He's just going to be back there. You can even have him with a bottle of ketchup just squirting, you know, and putting the ketchup on there, and he's just chomping. Nom, 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 nom. The way you have him visually perform is going to make a lot of difference based off of the context of who the character is and what the moment is. All right? The guy next to him is, jeez, dude, what are you doing? He's going to be more restrained because it's already bad enough that the fatty is eating the hot dog at the funeral, okay? This guy's just like, what are you doing? He's not going to, dude, what are you doing? Because that's not appropriate for that character in that context. Okay? So, these are important things. It helps us unpack what's happening. And this is all stuff that an actor keeps in mind as they're developing a performance. Okay? They understand the context, and they see it all around them. A word of sympathy for actors who are having to do a lot of work in these green screen special effects films. Their context is ruined. No wonder why a lot of these performances are stiff and lifeless. It's because they're having to imagine that ping pong is another character. It doesn't, or that tennis ball represents a pony, or that the highway cone represents an oncoming truck. I mean, they're having to imagine so many things that context is undervalued in today's acting world. Just want to say. That's why stage acting is always so much more vibrant to me, because it's in the moment, and plus these guys are feeding off of the energy that the context provides. But us as animators, what we can do is feed off the energy of the context as we understand it. Now, like I said, a lot of that is devised and provided for us in the storyboard phase. So other people are thinking about the context, and as a result, they're thinking of different ways of making the performance work. And the director is going to direct the voice actor, and the voice actor is going to bring their understanding of the context. So we as animators are out of the loop on a whole bunch of this stuff. But again, it's important for us to be able to unpack what's going into the performance so that we can better understand how to express the performance. Okay? Because if we're just coming to it and just saying, well, these are words, or these are sounds, and we don't really understand what's happening, I see this all the time, then we fall back on our cliches. We don't understand what's going into the performance or how it was crafted in the mind of the actor. So we just kind of say, well, how about this pose? Or how about this pose? Or how about this pose? Or the other million cliche poses that we use because we don't really understand what's happening. We think we do, but we really don't. Okay? So that's text, dry words, context, which is the situation and the characters and who they are. But the real power, the real meat of this, subtext. Ooh, we're going to talk a lot about subtext next. Okay, so what is subtext? Subtext is not motivation. Okay? Some people say the subtext is the motivation of the character. We're going to talk about motivation next month quite a bit, okay? But right now, motivation is what the character wants or why they're doing what they're doing, okay? Subtext is not this. Motivation exists for the character based off of either some primal emotional, physical, or spiritual need, okay? There are things that we want fulfilled in us. We move and act in life in a way such as to accomplish or achieve these things, to meet our emotional, physical, or spiritual needs. This is just the reality, okay? It's how we're wired, it's how we were made. God touched us and said, this is how you are, okay? So that's motivation. Subtext is not motivation. Subtext is the running commentary in the voice, in the mind, that little, let me say that in a clearer way. It's the silent voice inside a person's head that is commenting on what's going on around them. Okay? Let's go back to our line. What are you doing? I'm eating. Why? Isn't that obvious? Put it into the context of an insensitive character eating a hot dog at a funeral, and his buddy next to him, who is a sensitive and well-mannered sort, who's just like, this is terrible. Why are you doing this? Okay. The subtext is what's going on, that little voice inside our heads. For instance, somebody could be saying, give me a hand here. Okay? Well, give me a hand here is a colloquial way of saying, help me out. Now, a person could be saying that rather dryly, help me out. But let's say it's a husband who's sitting on the couch watching football with a beer in his hand and a bag of chips, and his wife is back here trying to juggle two little toddlers while she's taking out the trash because the garbage truck is down the street and she's got to get the trash out. Okay. The running commentary in her mind says, "What a fat, selfish slob." Right? That's what she's really thinking. The little voice in her head that's giving commentary on what's happening in her life is that fat, selfish slob. And so she says, "Can you give me a hand here?" She says it in an angry way. That subtext informs how she says the word. So I've set the context. All right. A woman struggling with toddlers, trying to get the garbage out because the garbage truck is coming. Her husband's watching football, oblivious to what's going on. That's the context. The text is, "Can you give me a hand here?" Okay? As dry as possible. "Can you give me a hand here?" The subtext, the woman saying, that fat selfish slob. So when she speaks those words, there's a definite anger involved, okay? An annoyance, a lack of patience, and a certain degree of justifiable hurt, being hurt, okay? So all three of these things roll together to create that one recording, that one line, okay? Now let's say we change the context. Let's say the context for the text is, "Can you give me a hand here?" Okay? You have two people who are trying to move, let's say, a new couch. A husband and a wife, newlyweds. They just bought a new couch, okay? And they're happy about the purchase, and they're trying to move it into their apartment. And this is like their first big thing. They're like, woohoo! And they're both very happy because this is like the beginning of their life together. The world, the future possibilities are endless to them, okay? So as a result, the guy's trying to get the thing in, but the door keeps hitting him in the back. All right? That's the context. The text is the same. "Can you give me a hand here?" The context is two people who are in love, who are happy with each other. The world is all good for them. They're excited. The door keeps kind of hitting him in the back. His subtext could be, "Oh, she doesn't notice that. Maybe she can help me out." He's very forgiving, very gracious, very kind, very understanding that maybe she was trying to take the plastic off the couch because it was catching on the door or something else. There's all kinds of things that happen in life, and so she was trying to help him, and he knows that she's trying to help him, but he needs help in this other area that the door keeps hitting him in the back. Okay, so maybe he just wants her to kind of focus on that first. So he's like, "Hey, can you give me a hand here?" Wow, because the subtext is completely different. Now, here's the thing that's really cool. Context and subtext, one influences the other. Okay, the context of the moment, the context of who the characters are, where they are in their relationships, that information feeds the subtext. Okay, because the subtext, that little commentary voice in our heads, that is looking at the context and saying, "I'm making a value judgment." Okay, I'm looking at what's happening here. I'm looking at all the data in front of me. I'm looking at the persons involved, who they are, how I relate to them, our past, our future, this current moment, all the different things that go into it. Plus, there could be other physical factors. I have a bad back. I have a headache. My teeth hurt. I just noticed that I got fired, or I have a winning lottery ticket in my pocket and I can't wait to open it. There's all kinds of things that are kind of feeding into it that are part of the context. Context is made up of internal realities and external realities and relational realities, okay? These are all things that go into the mind of an actor. The relational realities are, how do I relate to this person? What's our history? Where are we currently at in our relationship? What is the likely future of our relationship? What can we expect, okay? Those are relational realities. That is part of the context on which subtext is commenting. Then there's the physical realities, the external realities. It's raining. I'm getting wet. My dress is getting ruined. And I just hate it when my dress gets ruined. So, my dress is getting ruined, all right? So, that's an external physical reality. And then there's the internal emotional realities. I just got fired from my job this morning. That may have nothing to do with the relational realities or the physical realities, the externals, okay? I may be at a New Year's Eve party and everybody's having a great time. The external physical realities is everybody's having a great time. It's New Year's Eve, woo, okay? And the relational realities, I may be with my best friend who really understands me. So I couldn't be in a better place that's more secure as far as a relationship goes. But the internal emotional realities, I just got fired from my job this morning, that's also going to be part of the running commentary of subtext. So I tell you all these things to kind of help you understand, help you unpack what goes into an actor's performance. Because when you get that voice recording, that little wave file, take the time to go through and think of every one of these things. The text is fairly obvious, just write down what he says, okay? But study the context. Take a look at the storyboards. Read the script. It's important. I mean, people sometimes they just get into a show and they start animating their shots. They don't want to know about story. They don't want to know about context. They don't want to know about this stuff. They just want to know. They just burrow down in this one scene. That's narrow-minded, short-sighted, and professionally not very smart. Okay. Read what's going on in the story. Where are we in the flow of the narrative? Who are these characters? Read up on the character bios. Okay. Find out who is this person who is represented by this piece of audio. Okay? And then, when you understand the context, you can start digging into the subtext. Think, well, what would be this person's running commentary in their mind about what's happening? See, subtext is often classified as what we mean when we say something. That's a fair way of looking at it. But I thought that definition lacked enough information in it to allow us to really get our feet in, or our hooks into it and understand it. Because a lot of people say subtext is what we really mean when we say something. For instance, we can say playfully, oh, I hate you. Okay? We can say it with a smile. We really mean, I really admire you. You are so talented that you make me jealous. I really admire you. You're like, oh, I hate you. Or we could say, I hate you. Or somebody in an argument could be like, I hate you. Okay, there's sometimes subtext doesn't exist. Okay? And this is something you have to remember. In extreme contexts, okay, in moments of extreme pain, fear, joy, and elation, that overflowing joy, in contextual extremes, subtext goes silent. And the words really are what they are. Okay? So, if somebody's getting their leg chewed by a tiger and they scream out, oh my God, help me! There is no subtext, okay? Because the extreme nature of that moment, the extreme nature of that context has stripped away the ability to have any running commentary silently in the head. All the barriers, all the social, all the etiquette barriers are dropped, and what is really inside comes out. Okay? Keep that in mind, okay? Sometimes we can overthink this. What's the subtext here? He's being run over by a truck. There isn't a subtext. He's being run over by a truck, okay? What he says is what he means, okay? Unless the writers are a little too clever for their own good. But in all other situations that are not extreme, extremely happy or extremely sad or painful or stressful, that other 80 to 90% range, there's always some kind of a subtext going on. So what we want to do is we want to dig in there and find out what that subtext is. Let's go back to the guys, we'll wrap this up here. We'll go back to the guys at the funeral. The subtext of the dude who's eating the hot dog, he's a selfish guy, okay? So in context of who he is, he's thinking, man, I haven't had anything to eat since, half an hour ago. I got this hot dog vendor over here. I just picked this up on the way over here. I don't even like the guy who's buried. His wife is kind of fat, and his kids are always kind of stupid. So, the commentary in his mind is going to be very self-centered and very callous. And so as a result, his actions and the way he says things are going to be callous and self-centered, okay? So get in there and really dig into that moment and say, well, what's this guy, what's he think about everybody around him? Okay? That's part of subtext. What does this person think of everybody around him? That's one part of subtext. Another part of subtext is, what does he think of the moment? Okay, maybe he thinks, dude was out drinking, skirting around on his wife, and he died in a car wreck. Good, he deserved it. Okay, he's making a comment, an emotional value judgment about the funeral because of the behavior of the guy who's being buried. Okay, he may disapprove of that, or he might say, Richie, a rich dude, everything went right for him, nothing ever went right for me, so what do I care? Finally some justice in this world. Okay, that's a lot of stuff packed inside of I'm eating. Okay, the text is very simple, I'm eating. But how he says it, there's a lot of stuff behind it. So, two parts of context. What does the person think about the people around them? What does a person think of the situation? And the third part of the context is, what does a person think about themselves? Okay? We're always in a conversation with ourselves in our mind. Okay? We're always evaluating what we do or what we say. Sometimes we think, oh, I was real clever that time. Or sometimes we say, well, I really messed that one up. Or, oh, that was a dumb thing to say. Or sometimes we think, I'm a loser. I'm going to really screw this up. Or sometimes we think, I'm on my game today, babe. There's no way I could lose. Or sometimes we're conflicted. Well, I hope I'm doing this okay, but here goes. Okay? Those are the three parts of subtext. What do they think about the people around them? Relationally, non-relationally, just what do they think about what these people are and what those people are doing? Okay, that's kind of a two parts to one part, okay? What does this person think about the people around them? In that moment, the commentary, like if you were just tell me your thoughts honestly, they would say blah, 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 all right? Second part of context, what do they think of the events going on around them? You know, an irritated workaholic dad, you know, leaves the office, he's got a big project due tomorrow, and he's going to his kid's violin recital, and he's just sitting there with his arms crossed, checking his watch every 5 minutes, okay? What does he think about the situation? These kids sound terrible, their violins sound like mating cats, that one kid has really thick glasses and funny looking braces. And the other part is, what does he think about himself? I shouldn't be here, I have more important things to do, this is dumb, I can't believe my wife dragged me here. Okay, those are all the things, all right, that go into it. What do I think about the people around me? What do I think about the situation? What do I think about myself? Those are the three parts of subtext. So now we've got all this, we've got the text, easy. Context, not too bad. Context is a lot of times filled out for us. Where the animator lives is the world of subtext, okay? Because text is the world of the writer. Context is the world of the storyboard artist, and the story artist, and the director. Subtext is the world of the animator. And that's where we come in. Because so much of this other stuff has been done for us. But where we get to play our little sandbox, our little place of fun is subtext. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of fun there. There's a lot of really fun there. You start digging into these questions and start watching movies. Don't watch animated movies. Watch other movies, okay? Pick a movie you really like, pick one scene, and just watch it. And then stop and pause it, and then do a character by character breakout and say, hey, what is this person, you know, what's the context of this person? What's going on, you know? Describe the context, write out the text. Describe the context of what's happening and who the characters are in it and what the relationship to one another is. That's all very important because it feeds subtext. And then start studying and asking these questions. What is character A's subtext? What do they think about themselves? What do they think about the other people around them? What do they think about the situation? And do this as practice, okay? And as you start to do this, you'll start to understand what goes into the actor's mindset. This is the stuff that's kind of really important for us as animators, because so many times acting coaches come in and just want to teach us how to act. And they'll do improv sketches and, you know, have us do all different kinds of things. And that's cool. I mean, they're all useful in their own way, but you got to find stuff that's applicable to what we do, okay? I've been to a ton of acting classes, read a bunch of acting books, talked to actors, dealt with all this stuff, been a director of voice actors, have been a voice actor, and so have been a writer and a director and all that other stuff. So this is the stuff I figured out that helps me kind of really dig in to the moment and figure out what are we dealing with here. And that allows me to come up with expressions, gestures, facial expressions, mannerisms, body language, that all feel like they're flowing out of something sincere. And that's really the heart of it, is sincerity. Now, sincerity can mean two things. Sincerity can mean, I'm genuine in my feelings of goodness towards you, okay? But sincerity in the term of animation could be for a villain as well. What it really means is, does it feel honest, okay? Are we being fair to what the character honestly feels or thinks? And everything we do visually, everything we do with the body, everything we do with the performance comes from an effort to try and be honest with the character as we understand them, and honest to the voice recording. Okay? The voice recording is going to have a certain sorry, the English word's escaping me. It's going to have a certain emphasis. Okay? It's going to have a certain flow. It's going to have a certain attitude to it. And our first initial idea is to just kind of categorize that in a large, he's angry. No. People aren't angry. Okay? We have a lot of words. Irritated, agitated. Gosh, the English words keep escaping me. I've been talking Portuguese too much. They're unfocused, or they're thinking of other things, or they don't feel good. These are all parts of things that can come off in a big blanket. Angry. He's angry. So when we do angry, what do we do? And that's it. Well, I mean, there's, he's hurt, he's offended, insulted, he feels lonely, he's confused. All these things can show up and sound like anger, but they're not, okay? These are things that are deeper than just the cliche angry. So when we hear the voice track and all we hear is just a certain way of doing things, we don't do our homework about what the subtext is, we end up going with the cliches. He's angry, he's embarrassed, he's sad, he's happy, he's confused. Can you think of any other cliches that come up? That covers almost all of them, all right? But there's such a wide array to animation, to the soul of a person. So what we want to do in getting into the subtext is we just want to find who that character is in that moment and be honest to it, okay? That means getting in the character's head and finding out what that character honestly thinks and feels about the world around them, about the context, and about themselves, others around them, and the situations they're in, okay? Relationally, all that, okay? So this is the stuff. So next time you get a scene, take a few minutes and explore these ideas in your mind. Write them out, say, what is the subtext? What is this? What is the context? What does he feel about this? What does he feel about that? And trust me, you're going to find answers for your performance that you will not find just listening to a soundtrack saying, oh, I got it, da-da-da-da-da-da, okay? You could listen to a soundtrack 100 times, and if you don't do these simple things, you're never going to get any closer to understanding what the character really is about. And as a result, your animation is going to feel cliched, it's going to feel lifeless, it's not going to register with the audience, it's not going to feel honest. And as a result, it'll just go on the junk heap of other media crap that doesn't mean anything and doesn't affect people, okay? If we're making TV shows for kids, or we're making movies, or whatever, we're thinking, well, gosh, how much good am I doing anyways? Listen, there's no reason that God made sunsets. Okay? There really is no reason. He makes a sunset to be beautiful, to express something about his character. Okay? That's it. There's no physical benefit to the world. There's no ecological benefit to the world from the visual effect of a sunset. Okay? Ecological, environmental, and weather things create sunsets. Okay? But sunsets in and of themselves affect nothing. All right? They are merely a transition from a period of day to a period of night. They are nothing more than a visual phenomenon. They have no utilitarian purpose in the context of ecology, the environment, how the world functions. But they're beautiful. They're wonderful to look at. Why are they there? So sometimes it's okay to just make sunsets. Sometimes, and I know this is true for a lot of animators who come at their work from a faith-based position, or a worldview that's very informed by their faith. This is especially true of Christian animators. They really, really want to do something that affects the world. Okay, that's a noble thing. But sometimes, just making a beautiful sunset is good enough. You know? So, my job is to help you make beautiful animation that's sincere and honest and that people can get enjoyment from. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just because something doesn't save the whales, save the babies, or convert lost souls, doesn't mean it has no value. Okay? Sometimes we just like macaroni and cheese because it tastes good. So make good tasting animation. Alright, that's enough mambling for this month. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope this was helpful to you. I love these kinds of topics because they challenge me to kind of really dig in there and really find out what I do to really get better at this stuff. So these are things that help me. Hopefully they help you. And until next month, we're going to get into motivation. Remember, I promised that. Next month, motivation. And remember, this stuff's supposed to be fun, be good to each other, be kind, and have a great and awesome 2008.